Well, all right, y'all. All across the USC, Compton, Watts, Bay to LA. Pomona, California, from valley to valley, we represent that killer Cali. So if you keeping it real on your side of your town, you tune in to Gangster Chronicles. Ew.
Gangster Chronicles, we gon' tell you how it goes.
If I lie, my nose will grow like Pinocchio. We gon' tell you the truth and nothing but the truth. Ew.
Gangster Chronicles, this is not your average show.
You're now tuned into the real MC8, Big James, and Big Steele.
This is strictly from the streets.
Hello.
We represent the James.
You are now tuned in to episode almost close to 600, live and direct from Off the Cuff Radio. I'm your host, King Eric, the Media Assassin, and this show is sponsored by Buddy Boy Entertainment, sponsored by Screwball Radio, sponsored by Da Vinci Clothing. I got my host T-Max with the facts on the line. What's good?
Frequency of outstanding. We are live and direct. Shout out to our co-host in spirit, Ilana Sandman, Lady Chinchilla, and of course, Dirty Basement, DJ Sincere up in New York. It is another championship chapter in the illustrious history of our super show. And tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we have a legendary figure from the left coast. This man is a curator, creator, savant in all things academic of everything in LA. He is one of the most esteemed, respected, revered, and highly influential figures in the new wave of podcasting. This man is known for his dope podcast, The Gangster Chronicles. And we are so humbled, so blessed, so fortunate to have him on the show tonight to detail his journey, his story, and to tell it like it is, like he always does, keeping it G, with the extra lean in it. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, the illustrious, luminous, legendary, and his resolve is as solid as his name, Mr. Norman Steele.
What's
Welcome
good?
to Off the Cuff Radio.
Man, I really appreciate the amazing intro, gentlemen. How y'all doing tonight?
Hey, man,
We
we
good.
good.
What about yourself?
We blessed, brother.
Man, I don't have no problems, man. Anytime you wake up on this side of the plane, man, you all good. I don't never have no complaints.
Man, rather standing 10 toes down and 2 feet rather than 6 feet under, man. That's what it do when you're able to walk the street, man.
Facts.
For sure, man. I appreciate y'all having me on.
Absolutely. Mr. Steele, this is an honor, man. I mean, it's, for a chapter of ours, to have one of the living legends of one of the most respected and popular podcasts out there, man. I mean, you got a story. We and everybody else want to hear it. Let's go. Let's get it. Tell everybody about yourself.
Man, the story is forever evolving, man. Shout out to my boy Glasses Malone, my brother from another. We started, man, maybe 2015, talking about doing podcasts. I was really into podcasts, man. And now that he's one of my good friends, it's kind of amazing, man. I used to be a big fan of Chris Morals and those guys moving loudspeakers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Loudspeakers, Combat Jack, and all those guys, man. So I was a big fan of podcasting earlier on, and they hadn't quite adapted to it on the West Coast like that yet. It wasn't talked about nowhere near the way it's talked about right now. So I was trying to get Glasses to do a podcast. And we had started off doing some stuff, but at that time, Glasses wasn't real serious. We would do an episode, man, and might not do an episode for 2 more weeks, right?
Right.
And I always thought that he would be great in the space, right? And so one night, man, we was actually sitting in my living room, and I told Glasses, I said, man, I'm doing a podcast called Gangster Chronicles. And this was probably about maybe a good year and a half before we actually started recording it. And I said, man, we started talking about we kind of cast that show. So the original cast that was on that show, we had put that together. Those guys, we had put that together. It started off with Reggie Wright, James McDonald, and myself at first, but I never wanted to be on the show. I was actually about to move to Atlanta, Georgia.
Uh-huh.
I was going to move to Atlanta, Georgia at the time, so we started the show up, and I was on the first, I think, maybe 3 or 4 episodes, I believe. It was so long ago, man. We had started off like that, and then we had talked about bringing Alex Alonso in because we knew we needed someone who was like kind of like an academician. Everybody on there couldn't be, everybody kind of had a role. That's probably why you would never see another podcast like that again, because it was very specific. We had specific people we were going for, with Alex being kind of like the sociologist kind of like figure, Reggie from law enforcement and James from the underworld, right?
Right.
So we had put that together. Only one that had experience doing podcasts out of those guys, you had Alex, of course, his platform, Street TV, has been around for a long time. And, I don't have an ounce of hate in my blood at all, so I got to give him his props because he was probably one of the first people doing that format. Like actually sitting down and talking to the guys from the streets out here and the different brothers. So I always thought he was great at what he did. So we had brought him on. And it kind of just took a life of its own, man. We, 5 years, it don't seem like 5 years right now, man, but it's been like 5 years since we, brought that show to life, right?
Uh-huh.
And just through all the changes and the different things that went through, So I'm going to keep it 100 tonight, y'all. I'm going to tell y'all everything that happened with the situation on where it's going right now. So we had this great run. We had we got this great run going, right?
Uh-huh.
The one thing about it is Reggie was always really honest with what he had going on because at that time he was fighting the case.
Right.
So we didn't know how long he was going to be on the show, if he was going to be there, if he was going to beat his case or not. We just didn't know. It was kind of like in God's hands, right?
Uh-huh.
So we always knew that we would have to, we would probably be minus a member one day, right? So, as we all know, I wound up not moving to Atlanta. I wound up not moving to Atlanta, so I'm out there producing the show. I'm putting everything together every week, along with Alex. Alex was putting stuff together too, right? Reggie winds up going to jail. He winds up going to go do his time. So he was only on the show for a total of maybe about 6 months. He wasn't on the show a long time.
Right.
He was on there 6 months. He wound up going to jail for that year. He wound up doing a year, I believe. So Reggie is gone. So Alex and James are doing the show then, right? They're doing the show. Everything is still going along. Then we have COVID. So I started saying, because I've been using Zoom. If y'all remember Zoom, it wasn't a regularly used thing at that time. Around when COVID came out, COVID kind of blew Zoom up.
Right.
Helped blow that platform up. So I sent Alex a message and told him, I said, hey man, we got Warren G coming on the show, so we go do it by Zoom. And I sent him the link. Didn't hear nothing else from him about it. I called him one time. The way I work, man, I don't do a bunch of phone calls. If I call you once and you don't answer and I shoot you a message and you don't get back, I assume you don't want to be bothered. So I'm not going to bother you. I'm not going to continue to call you. So after we didn't hear back from Alex after a while, I went ahead and jumped in and did it. That's more my wheelhouse anyway. Hip-hop is in my wheelhouse. I've been an executive. I've been in the industry as a manager and executive for a minute now, over, close to 25, 26 years.
Uh-huh.
So, I set the Warren G interview up, so I went on and did it with James. Hip-hop wasn't in James' wheelhouse. That's not what he does. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, I go in there and I do the interview with him. It goes from that one interview to it winds up being 2, 3, and at that time, and even now, that's James is not a content creator.
Uh-huh.
He's not a content creator. He's just a guy with an interesting story, and that's not a knock to him or nothing else. It's just the truth, So I wound up sitting in into the show to where it became a permanent thing, you know. And I was always planning for Reggie to come back to the show. So like everybody else in the world, you know, he had already had his own platform, the Bomb First platform. The thing was, you know, when Reggie went to jail, we had said that we would send money and everything like that. You know, we were looking out for the brother. So I was kind of surprised when I looked up one day, and I didn't hear it myself firsthand. Till somebody told me, they said, "Hey man, you know, Reggie was on the show saying that he's about to go start. He's Dr. Dre, and he's about to go start his own Aftermath." I said, "Oh yeah, is that right?" Well, much success to the brother. Again, I don't have an ounce of malice in my heart for them dudes, man. People can do what they want to do.
Right.
So, you know, he was already locked up, so he's pretty much confirming that he's not coming back to the show, right? So we keep on chugging along. It's what it is. I've never been one to let other people's movement stop what I had going on.
Absolutely.
Right.
You know, I thought of the show. It was my idea. It's my brainchild. It's my show, and they were canceled on that. So, you know, we have to adapt to where we're going, right? So, I had already prior to let's go back a little bit. You know, Alex is no longer, you know, showing up for the episodes or whatever like that, right?
Right.
So I don't know what's going on with him or whatever. He's, you know, as far as I know, he's gone. He got his own platform. Best of luck to him. You know, I wasn't tripping. You guys never heard me come out and disparage nobody publicly, because to me, I don't live in my emotions like that. I do what I do. Again, it's my show, so I'm gonna do what I need to do, right? So me and Alex, I'm not gonna say we didn't get along, because we never was friends. You gotta remember, this is all a business thing. That's why it's not ever personal with me. Like, none of these guys were my friends. You feel what I mean?
Right.
They were people that I worked with. You know, they got paid to do it. They got paid to do a job. Got paid very well, and actually was making more money than me, because by me paying for everything, by me paying for all the expenses, I'm splitting stuff down the line without even recouping money. Well, y'all know they do that in business.
Right.
You feel what I mean? So I'm just calling myself being fair, and really, like as my brother Glasses would say, man, you wasn't being fair to nobody. You was being unfair to yourself. So, you know, versus you being unfair to yourself. So we moving along, man, and I started having little things with Alex. I don't like to take, it wasn't nothing personal. I would just say we just didn't connect, man. We just, he had his idea of the way things should go, and I had my idea, and it was always going to be my idea, because that was my show.
Right.
It's my show. You feel what I mean? So I'm the one that had the vision for it. So I'm going to continue doing what I feel needs to happen that it brought us up to this point. Now, I would never sit up here and say that that Alex didn't do his thing. Alex is a very knowledgeable dude.
Right.
Very knowledgeable cat. You know what I mean? So I don't have nothing bad to say about that guy. But I just knew sometimes, man, you just had these personality conflicts that ain't gonna work. So I already kind of had back in my mind to make some changes. And I talked to 8 prior to COVID. I said, man, what you think about, because we had been talking about doing a podcast for him, right? But I thought about it, I said, man, it would be real dope to have MC8 as a part of the cast, right? So everything I do, man, I do deep prayer and supplication, man. I always pray, man. I'm a heavy believer, man, in prayer, man. I believe in the Most High. So I pray and think on stuff, right? I don't just make rash decisions, and I definitely don't make decisions based off of emotion, right? Because it's just not a wise way to move. So I've been talking about bringing 8 in the show, but then the COVID stuff happened. So I'm doing the show with James. We moving along, whatever. We just working, man. And so after a while, people started calling us from different research departments. We had a company called Businesstown reach out to us. We had another company that eventually wound up changing their name to Notorious. I'll go into that story in a minute, but we had these people reaching out to us. So we had actually went and did a deal with a company called Notorious. They were going to handle our sales for us, and they were going to provide the place in which we recorded. They had this mansion in Beverly Hills that was really, really immaculate. It was the perfect situation at first, right?
Oh wow!
I thought it was,
okay.
I thought it was a godsend, right? They had this big content house. So once we go in, and when we signed the deal initially, the company wasn't called Notorious. It was pardon me, man, for not remembering the original name of this company. But anyway, it was another company, right? Mm-hmm. So the guy that they had made the president of that company, he wound up, you start seeing subtle changes in the kind of environment that, that we had over there. At first, it was really nice and well kept and professional. I like order and structure. It was very, very professional, right? Mm-hmm. They had some of the best people in podcasting, working on the staff at the time, which is what made me do the deal with them, license the show over there. So I saw different people start to leave. When you've been in business as long as I have, when you see different people like in the executive level kind of checking out, that's kind of like a warning, right? The calm before the storm. It wasn't being kept up like it should be. We in a $20, $30 million house, and it's like it's dog poop on the floor,
Oh.
So it's kind of just one of those things to where it's like, man, what the hell is going on over here now? And come to find out that the guy had been terminated. The guy that was running the house, he had been terminated. He was he was in charge of the United States because the company was based in, I believe, in Japan, right?
Right.
It was a Japanese-based company. So he had been fired, but what they did is when he came over here down here to launch this thing, he had put everything under his name. So he pretty much locked them out their own shit, right? So it was one of the weirdest things ever, right?
Right.
And I get this weird email at 1:00 in the morning from the original, company like, hey, anyone that wants to leave now, we elect you out to agreement and you can re-sign with us directly, right? And we continue to do what we do. But whenever I see stuff like that, I'm just kind of like, man, I don't know. You know what I mean? Because we had been owed money because they were selling ads. And that's the thing, there's really no such thing as a podcast deal. What you do is there is such thing as a deal. You have certain situations to where you have someone come in and say, hey, okay, we're going to handle all the sales and we're going to handle production as well. We're going to start, pretty much you guys just show up and do what you do, right?
Right. And
we're going to handle everything. So we had been doing quite a bit of reads because when I did the deal, they wanted to give us an advance. They wanted to give us what's called a guarantee. And it wasn't really a significant guarantee for what they wanted in return. They wanted to own part of the intellectual property for the show. And I said, no, I can't do that for $30,000. You know what I mean? Like they were trying to give us like 30 grand, so I declined. But what I did say is, because I'm always thinking about my brothers in arms, so to speak, because we got other shows in the network, right? So I said, let's bring Smoke a Lot Radio over there too. Let us do this and we could do the deal. That was a part of it. Like y'all I'm gonna give y'all Gangster Chronicles, but y'all gonna take Smoke a Lot and y'all gonna bring some other shows over there too and start doing some other stuff. What I really wanted to do was focus on my network at the time, right?
Right.
And get that built. And I figured it would be a good opportunity because at that time, man, it was very hard to get advertising if you had a show in an urban space.
Right. Right.
It was just very hard because I remember initially we were in the CBS building, and I remember we were one of the top shows there then, but I remember the sales department telling us that, we can't sell a show called the Gangster Chronicles. It's going to be hard. The advertisers not with it, right? So,
right.
We go into this situation, man. At this time, they owe us maybe $40,000, $50,000 in ad revenue, right? Mm-hmm. We doing these reads, and by me being the head guy in charge, I'm always conscious of stuff like that. We had another show called Hip Hop Uncensored. They was getting some reads. You got to keep in mind, none of these shows some of them were doing better on YouTube than they were from the actual podcast, because what an actual podcast is just like we're doing now. We're having a conversation with audio. There's no cameras. I'm not on no camera nowhere. We just having a conversation. We talking, right?
Right.
That's what a podcast is. All that other stuff is just YouTube shows, right? And at that time, a lot of these sponsors, for because you can have 1 million YouTube views. They didn't care about that, because these brands wanted audio numbers. Audio is still the number one. Audio is still the most sought out platform when you're dealing with when you're dealing with these different brands, because that's a different audience. You have more of a pedestrian audience when you talk about YouTube, because they're not. You can be getting 200,000-300,000 views a week, but that don't mean people are actually interested in you. They're interested in what you're talking about. That's why you see a lot of bullshit on YouTube these days, because people are just looking to get the attention any way they can, right? It's a certain social currency to it, to where, you appear to be popular, but you're not making no money, because ain't nobody going to invest into that bullshit.
Right.
So, we kept it going, and you got to remember, whenever it comes up to money, right? I had certain shows that had been doing reads, but they hadn't been paid for them. So I finally started asking questions like, "Hey man, when are we go? Y'all steady giving us new reads. When we go get paid for the last 3 of them?" Because I know how the game goes. I'm not one of those guys that's ignorant to this stuff. I've been in podcasting almost since its inception. I know how it works, right? I know how it works, and I know how it doesn't work. So I know usually after you do a read, you're getting paid anywhere from 60 to 90 days later, right? Once they confirm that the read was done to their specifications and everything like that, you usually get paid, right? And the people that selling the reads for you, they take a percentage and they cut you a check. That had happened in our case, so I figured it was time to make a move. And by that time, and I knew it was a blessing behind it. Again, I'm a person that prays, right? So sometimes when I see chaos, I get happy, because I say God must have a plan. That's why it's not working. Everything that's supposed to happen, everything that's destined to happen will happen. So, needless to say, we never got paid from that stuff, right? So I wound up having to go in my pocket and pay some of these shows, because I had a few shows, man, that was upset about it or whatever, and rightfully so. They owed some money, but it wasn't like it was a whole, like with some of these shows, again, their numbers wasn't necessarily the greatest on the audio side, so it was one of those things, okay, so this show is owed $1,000. Those shows are assigned to me, so it's my responsibility to take care of it, whether I run out of soul, whether it was fault of my own or not, I had to go take care of it, right? So we had to go in as a company and pay these shows regardless of whether we've been compensated for them or not, right? So we just had a bunch of, there was a bunch of turmoil in the show, right? So me and James, we going right along, man. Spotify calls us. And I'm excited about that. I'm like, okay, we got Spotify on deck. Then Charlemagne hit us up and told us he was about to launch the Black Effect, network, and he wanted us to be involved with it. Now, keep in mind, during this time, one of the show's hosts, Bang Bang, he ain't been there forever. He was only on the show for 6 months. He's gone. He's out the picture. Another guy, he's excommunicado. He's gone. He just never came back anymore. So we just being quiet. I'm kind of being quiet about the deal or whatever, because when I get this stuff going on, I don't run and tell people, because just like you have people that pray for you, you got a bunch of people that pray against you as well.
Right.
So we keeping it moving, man. I'm saying, okay, I'm not going to say nothing yet, because I've had a bunch of conversations at this point with a bunch of people. Sometimes things move forward, sometimes they don't. So I don't like saying nothing about stuff to the ink is dry, right? Get nobody hopes up, right? So it's just me and James doing the show. We go ahead, as a company, I licensed the show to Charlemagne. We wound up doing a deal with Black Effect. Digital Soapbox Steele owns the Gangster Chronicles. We did a licensing deal with Black Effect, right? Where they handle all the sales, they take care of our, reporting and all that, but I still maintain ownership of the show. So we get this going, man. It's a good thing. We moving, we shaking and moving. it's starting to be little stuff now. Now I get an 8 because me and Charlamagne have a conversation one day, and he say, "Man, I love the show because at this point we about to do the deal." So now he's giving his input, and why wouldn't you take Charlamagne's input? He's one of the most esteemed guys in media, not just podcasting, but media. Period. Right? So we talking, and remember I told y'all I pray a lot. He asked me, he said, "Man, I'm thinking y'all need a rapper on the show." And I was looking at some videos this weekend. What do you think about MC8? And I just laughed. I said, "Man, I was thinking about putting 8 in the show anyway. It's funny that you bring him up, you know?"
Right.
So I get an 8. We bring 8 into the show, right? And we moving along right now. We moving. Reggie gets out of jail now. He's out of jail at this point. Again, remember, he gave up his seat to show a long time ago. He gets out the show. I hear about him that he's on Vlad talking about Norm owes me money. And so I'm like, "Oh, money." I said, "I don't know how that works if you quit your job, if you quit something and still expect to reap the benefits, right, of any situation that happens." So I'm ignoring all that stuff, man, and just kind of just like, there's a lot of stuff I won't go into, but I was helping that brother out on a lot of different levels, right?
Understood.
So, I'm hearing all this. That's when the talk start, right? And so it's like I actually hit him up and say, "Hey, man, how you figure you supposed to benefit off of something that you walked away from? Remember, you going to go start your own aftermath." And then his mindset is still like, "Well, man, I was there from the beginning with you. You could have did this and that." I said, "Well, man, I did a lot for you I didn't have to do. You got to remember, we paid you money when you was locked up, dude, and you never once came on the show. You was doing a Bomb First every week. But you never came in. You came in a couple of times, but it was one of those things, man. We don't even need to talk about it no more. But needless to say, he thought he should benefit somehow. Then, miraculously, Alex pops back up. Keep in mind, I haven't talked to him since I sent the text about the Warren G interview, right? He comes back and it's like, he sends a letter. He goes as far as sends a letter to iHeart talking about I should be a part of that show. Like the man don't know who they went out to sign. You got to remember when we did that deal, these guys hadn't been on the show for a year at least.
Right.
They hadn't been a part of it, right? So, me and James was going along, and at that time, I started already saying I'm going to have to make some changes as far as the direction of the show. I've been very adamant. You guys as listeners, anybody that listens to the show knows I've always been very adamant about me not being a gangbanger.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I'm not a gangbanger. That's not my world. That's not nothing I do. I know plenty of people and familiar with a whole bunch of neighborhoods, like all the neighborhoods pretty much, but that's not my thing. I'm my own man. And I came out to California in '88. I'm originally from Cleveland, Ohio, so I just thought it would always be goofy to start claiming the gang. Mm-hmm. So I'm not a gangbanger. My background is more music, right? But I am interested. I am very, very passionate about the kind of social, parameters that come along with people, from people joining gangs, the role that music plays in gangsterism, and a bunch of other really powerful dynamics. So I started kind of skewing the show towards more music, right?
Right.
More music with a political twist, like talking about how the climate of the early 90s and the late 80s may have impacted the NWA or whatever, just telling those different stories, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Because I had to make a change. And as we made those changes a little bit, it was kind of like one of those things to where I started trying to put James in a different mindset and kind of change his the perception that people may have had of him as just him being more than a gangbanger, but just start really just him telling people how to avoid some of the pitfalls that he's encountered through his life, right? Because when I first, became aware of James, I saw an interview. It was a program. I don't know if this was an actual documentary or whatever, but it wasn't from Vlad. I saw him on another show. I think it was something that Greg Kading may have produced, right? And I said, you know what, this is very, very interesting, man. So that's when I decided to bring James on, right? And we're going through this transition now, right? Now there started being a little talk. I started hearing a lot of rumors and innuendo about certain situations with James, right? Which I won't go into because it ain't like me and James was out there robbing banks together. So I don't really care what the man did or didn't do. Outside of our thing, right? But it started kind of like impacting the show. And then, we get this bombshell hit. Everybody know about the interview that FG had did with Alex Alonso, right?
Right.
So now all this stuff is happening to the point to where the president of iHeart hits me and like, hey, what's going on? This could be very, this could damage the credibility of the show and all this, right? And I'm like, understood. So I talked to my man and I said, hey, man, what's going on? He tells me, man, that none of this stuff is true. So I'm like, well, man, let's put a hole in this shit right now. Whatever you need me to go out and hire a private investigator, let's put a hole in it. But he didn't seem really too interested in trying to clear his name, right? Which kind of let me know, well, man, maybe some validity to this stuff. Again, I don't know. Only people that know what happened with that situation was FG, James, and God. I don't have nothing to do with it, but I know it's impacting the show now. And it's like anything else. I assume some of you guys have worked in corporate America before, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
If you work in corporate America, you could be the best employee in the world, but if your wife is coming up to your job showing her ass every other day, or you got something that's like causing dissension in the business or whatever, what are they going to do?
They get rid of you. I mean, the situation of what you said, Norm, is, I mean, we're loving all the game you've given us with this. People, in terms of doing a podcast, especially for all of us being black men and for black people, there are three things that are tenets of it: truth, character, and most importantly, substance. And whoever you bring to a platform at any point, there has to be something where there is a contribution to where it is not going to corrode, erode, or compromise what you all do. Shout out to Mob, shameless plug for Brutally Opinionated Podcast, because our girl Nene did an amazing interview with him as well. And it's important for people to get past certain preconceived notions of what people may think. And you as a businessman, as a legend, as a stand-up individual, you know what your brand you're trying to broadcast. And like you said, you can't have a situation where there could be some things that come up that could, bring an inquiry of credibility. You want the merits of your work to stand on its own, of what you all have worked tirelessly and so exhaustingly dedicated to making it great.
Exactly. And I never, you got to remember, James had been there from the show's inception, right?
Right.
The last thing, this is what I want to clear up. The last thing I want to do was let James go. I was one of his biggest cheerleaders, so to speak, right? To the thing about me trying to get books published on a lot of different things, just things to help him grow as an individual, right? That had nothing to do with me per se, but me trying to really look out for him, right? So the way this stuff really came to its climax was this. And the last thing I want to do is get talking about these dudes, man. But I'm just telling the truth. This is, the truth is the truth, man. It's not nothing personal ever with me. So, James, when this came to the apex, was James conducted the interview. They did. My guy from Art of Dialogue conducted the interview with James, right?
Yes, sir.
He conducted the interview, and some of the lines of questioning that he received came from another person.
Okay.
And I won't say his name, but it was a person that's, close to James, right? That was actually a former, you guys could do your own detective work, but he was a former member of the show.
Yep,
and so he had put some innuendo out there. He put a line of questioning in where it mentioned FG's name. So when that happened, James had some subsidiary things to say about that individual, and it just kind of went from there to where we started seeing the interview with FG, because in me having the actual conversation with FG said I was going to never mention James' name if he would have brought my name up.
Right.
So
right.
It's all this different stuff going on, man. It's a lot of stuff, and you got to remember, we got 8 in the show at the time. It's a lot of stuff that could have happened that don't necessarily have nothing to do with me and 8. So there was a decision made that, okay, we're not going to bring James back to the show, but one of the things that we looked at doing was maybe giving him his own platform, right?
Mm-hmm.
And contrary to what was said or what was ever, said, people talk about money and stuff like that. When we made the decision to let James go, we actually gave him more money than what he was due. Mm-hmm. Because we understood the gravity of the situation. And I even understood him being upset. You're going to have this, if you're an emotional person, you're going to feel a certain way when you get terminated from a position.
Right.
And it was just as rough on me than it was anybody else, because I had to go deliver the news. Again, I did not want him. In a perfect world, man, James would still be on the show and we'd be rocking and rolling. In a perfect world, none of them dudes would have never left. And that was one of the biggest things. I heard a few people say, well, it's because he wanted to be in the limelight, wanted to shine. If that was the case, it was my show. I invented it. I would have did that from the beginning.
Right.
I would have just stayed there from the beginning. I didn't want to do it. My main focus was then at that time was to really build one of the biggest black networks of content creators in the country. That was my purpose at that time. That's what I had planned to do. And doing that, you can't coach a game and be out there playing quarterback too.
Now, when you think about this, Norm, especially in this age of where we are seeing social media in so many fashions exponentially evolve. This is something that even recently, as 10 years ago, we had not seen the breadth of it as it is now. How important was you with your vision to have something that came from us, that articulated our stories, our feelings, our sentiments, and most importantly, our truth in the aforementioned?
I was and I am very close, because as you travel on your journey of life, right, you continuously learn and you evolve, right?
Uh-huh.
There are so many different elements to this stuff, man, and I learn something new like almost daily, right?
Yes, sir.
Shout out to the people out there doing their job, and I look at everybody, man. I'm one of the guys. I pay attention. I don't necessarily consume a lot of content, because a lot of stuff is just not good for you.
Tell it.
A lot of stuff is just not good for you, and I don't live in an emotional space, because if I lived in an emotional space, I would have probably aborted the mission a long time ago, because you get people that have opinions, right? And people have opinions based on things that ain't necessarily true all the time. They have no idea about this something, and it's like, I've even had fans that have came like on YouTube or whatever, leaving comments or whatever, like F you, Norm, you did this to James, you did this, you cheated Reggie and this and that, and I just laugh because they have no clue, but everything is there right in front of them.
Right.
If they get out their feelings and stop worrying about what other grown men got going in their life and just went back and did a little research. I'm not talking about doing a full-on investigation. Everybody would see that Reggie Wright left that show on his own reconnaissance. Alex Alonso left his shoulder. The only person that kind of got the bad shake of the stick was James. And even with that being said, it was a result of decisions that he possibly made.
It's always
right.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
But can't nobody can say that they didn't get paid, because people were being paid to the point to where it wasn't even right, because you got to remember, I'm doing all the work. I'm the one staying up to 2 o'clock in the morning to make sure stuff is edited out there and right. The show is getting uploaded. This is done. Oh, this engineer needs to be paid. We in the CBS building, he get paid $100 an hour. So the bill every week for all them shows combined is probably like, anywhere from $1,800 to $2,500. I'm paying for that.
Right.
I don't know. It don't work nowhere else. Nowhere else on the planet does it work like that except in the mind of the Negro.
But that's always a
people
very
don't understand
treacherous
that.
situation.
Yeah, they don't understand
when we look at anything from music, because we definitely in this, we want to talk about the experiences you've had in music business as well, because all this is related, because people are only in the peanut gallery, with commentary, but they're not in the game, actually understand the strategy and how plays are being ran. So there's always going to be a sentiment that is rooted in, it's going to be rooted in speculation and personal bias, but not always founded in facts and truth. We have seen this in the worst scenarios. People have gotten killed behind this.
Oh, for sure.
Because there were people who ran off on secondhand information that was counterfeit and not the complete story. And, for us, with, James McDonald, known as Mob James, if you know your hip hop history and your stories, Mob's story is one of, dude, we could do 4 hours on the show about him, and it still wouldn't be enough.
Right.
The man's history is extensive. But people will try to go from the elements of what they've heard, but not necessarily from what they've heard, and even what they have heard, publicly is true, but not knowing the whole truth of what goes on with the dynamics. And that's like any situation. People are going to develop their opinions and have commentary, but they don't have all the facts. And unfortunately, sometimes, you're going to be caught in that crossfire unfairly, because of what, obviously you being the man that you are, not everything that happens in personal space of what you and other individuals are is for the galaxy of everybody else to fly a spaceship in and see the planet of.
Especially, I was gonna say, especially when the people that are saying these things, they have like a bigger microphone and audience, so it's easy for them to have the public on their side.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And especially, you got to remember, I've never spoken on none of this stuff, because I don't care to. It's a lot of stuff. I'm gonna tell you, man. I'm gonna tell you guys all something. If I was living in emotion, which I'm a man, I don't live in my emotions. I think living in your emotions is very much a feminine trait. And that's not to say that we don't have emotions. We get our feelings hurt. We can have stuff, but I'll tell you, none of this stuff that has ever happened hasn't hurt my feelings, because my feelings and emotions are reserved for people and friends and individuals I care about.
Right.
That we have this mutual, we have a mutual feeling for each other. And I'm talking about your children, your brothers, your mama, your wife, good friends. That you can have a friend. You got certain friends that are, they're family members. Like Lance Malone, he surpasses just being a friend and an associate of mine. We've been through certain situations in life that have brought us extremely close, right?
Right.
That's my brother. I have a relationship with him that expands past 20 years. We're very good friends, right? So now if me and glasses fall off, I'm going to feel some kind of way. But it's not going to be nothing I'm going to run to the internet with. Traditionally speaking, if someone has a real issue with you, and it's either litigious or personal, they're not gonna run the internet, bro.
And that's true. And
they're not gonna run the internet because let me give this an example.
Go ahead.
Black Effect is a great company, man. I love Charlamagne. Everybody, the whole staff over there is beyond professional. If I ever had an issue with any of them, do you think I would be on YouTube or Instagram making videos about it? No, I have an attorney for that. It would be handled in the boardroom. It would be handled in the court of law. It wouldn't be me talking to somebody in the comments. What, somebody in the comments could help me get my money?
And that's a very, this is something, as we say, in the hood, say it louder for the people in the back. Because we've seen these situations play out where King has an unbelievable background in journalism. So he sees how these things play out. Myself, over a 30-year child of the culture of hip-hop, collectively as brothers, we have seen how these situations, as you said, Norm, play out when people get pissed off about stuff and they want to take it to the internet in this age, and this even, we see it with, regular shit in the street. And then we see celebrities go out there talking about, well, such and such did me wrong, this, that, and the other, or such and such said this. We'll keep it light on this side of it. If somebody says something about somebody, they say, well, such and such is whack, and they got this song. We're like, well, jump in the booth then.
Yeah, hell it.
Yeah.
Talk about it. And, don't be on the internet wolfing, jump in the booth and say something there.
And most of this stuff is not personal like that. Like
right,
I don't take none of this stuff personal, man. You know why? Again, because none of these guys are my friends. And when I say that, that's not a bad thing, but we need to really go back and revisit what the definition of friendship is. You have to remember, some of these guys I didn't know any of these people prior to us doing the show. Now, I may have been familiar with them. I wasn't familiar with Ma James at all. Outside of his story, I saw his story just like everyone else. He wasn't a friend of mine. Now, did we develop a camaraderie? Yeah, of course we did. But to call, I don't know about y'all, but when someone is called a friend of mine, I take that very serious. I have a lot of associates, but I have very few friends.
And, one thing about it, when you get into show business, what we have been blessed to do, once again, I'm going to big up my brother. King started this back in 2014, and I would just be a call-in guest until they like my contribution so much. Shout out to Sandman for bringing the idea in, and then Chinchilla and King coming along with it. King has helped me live out what I've been. He's more than a friend to me. King is my brother. His mother is my second mother. His brothers are my brother. Because without him, I'm not living my dream of doing this where people thought I could do it. So the relationship we have is, like you said, Norm, it goes beyond. Because there are people, as you go through it, when you get into the business, when you understand how you are both invested in terms of making an idea become a reality, bringing a dream to fruition, and most importantly, building it solidly, that's something. What you said earlier about men and emotions, we all are human, so we all have feelings. But as a man, we are rooted from the Most High, from our trait of discerning logic. A man should always think about everything before he does it. He can have emotions, but as you said, do not make emotional decisions because you're upset. Think it through.
Right.
And like you said, when you have individuals, like you said, who start to say stuff, as you said, you have the logic, you have the wisdom, and most importantly, the restraint. Keyword restraint. Because when niggas get pissed, and we have seen this especially in the social media era, it's not pretty. It is not
Oh,
pretty.
not at all.
Because everybody sees what goes on out there. So now this has turned into a situation where everybody, especially when it becomes public, oh, that skin be thin. And everybody said, yes, you know, you're going to let them say, I mean, and then how many times have we seen somebody say something online and then somebody went out and did something dumb because of what somebody whose opinion was not even tied to the situation of actually knowing, and they acted off of what somebody put a battery in their back to become a crash dummy do.
Right.
Exactly. And that's why even when you have receipts on certain things, it's not worth, because I'm going to tell you something. The internet is undefeated. The internet is undefeated. Everyone that leaves a comment, now I'm going to tell you something I find really entertaining. And see, when you live in the truth, in real time, it's almost like somebody going online and saying, hey, King is gay. Now, I don't care what a person's sexual preference is. You know, first, let me put that disclaimer out there. But if you're not gay, what you worried about some random dude saying it for? I wouldn't even address that. That's something that's not even worth addressing or even worth acknowledging, right? So a lot of this stuff is not even worth being acknowledged. And I've had people send me long emails. Now check this out. They've went out their way. They've taken time. I think time is our most valuable commodity, right?
Right.
Time is our most valuable commodity because time is the only commodity that can't be recouped.
Right.
I can lose money. I can lose $20,000, $30,000 a day. Guess what? I can go make more money. Ain't no reason to jump off a building. You can go recoup money. You can go recoup money. You can recoup property, right? You wreck your car, you can go get another car. But once time is gone, whether that's an hour, second, or a year, or a decade, that time cannot be recouped, right? So I'm not going to waste any of my valuable time responding to bullshit, because when you think about it, I am winning. Y'all going out your way to engage me. You telling me I don't mean nothing to you when obviously I do, because you went out your way to engage me.
Right.
Man, look, shout out to our girl, Nayuri. I had a off-air conversation with her because somebody said something crazy. And shout out to the Oakland, the Bay Area where she's from, man, Vallejo, because, I mean, them girls out there, they just different in a good way, you know. And she said, because I never heard it before, where she said, look, because she was talking about somebody who said her stuff, and she's like, you and your punk ass fingers take all that time to talk shit. Oh, I fell out laughing.
Yeah, the Bay, man, the Bay is quick with the tongue, man.
Yes, they are. She is proof of it. We love her dearly. You know, that's what Day is our Bay. We love her dearly.
Yeah, and that's the thing, you know, and then the other thing that I've heard, man, that's why the show fell off. It ain't shit no more. Dude, we one of the biggest podcasts up at iHeart. You think them people keep re-signing us every year because we fell off?
Right.
You feel what I mean? So people say stuff just out of, see, what's happening with the internet now is anything that you go on there and say, right?
Right.
There's somebody in that comment section or out there consuming your content that's going to take it as gospel. You can say, hey, man, the world, think about it. We've had people in this world like Jim Jones. We've had different people like David Koresh, right? Because people for the no one pays attention. No one bothers to do, because everything I said is public record. You can go back, if you took the time and if you cared enough about it, go back and research everything I said and you will see a certain timeline. And the honest truth of the matter, both of you guys are in the know of what's going on the internet, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Have you guys at any point ever seen me come out and talk about anybody?
No, never. And that's important. You know, when we look at how situations, when you mention David Koresh and the Branch Davidians, and of course Jim Jones and the Jonestown massacre, you know, what you said, Norm, carries a lot of weight that a bodybuilder couldn't even fully press. Because when you're looking at the gravity of how people identify with certain sensibilities, you know, even when we look at a certain dude trying to get back in the office for all of his fuckery. You know, people tend to want to, they want to believe, and I tell anybody, this has no racial lines on it, because at the end, there are smart black people, there are smart brown people, there are smart Asians, there are smart whites, and there is dumb whites, dumb Asians, and dumb blacks. Ignorance is an equal opportunity offender. Yep. But naivete and gullibility, because dumb is when you may not know. Naivete is when you really don't know and you're just going to believe what anybody tells you.
Right.
That's dangerous. And when you have people that get out there, like you said, that is why when we do this show, some facts we may miss, we may get wrong, but never, ever, ever on our platform or with yours will we ever say anything to deliberately mislead, malign, or be malicious. Now, we will call out stupidity if we see it, but we will never, ever purposefully put out anything that is untrue or outright lie to get numbers.
Exactly.
And when we see these situations with some of these individuals, because King and myself, I always try to be restrained. Now, King is going to light their ass up if they get out of line. He has. I've seen it, and the shit has been hilarious. But they want to get out and question and criticize our art. You know, like RZA said on the Windpipe on the Belly soundtrack, you faggots trying to judge my shit like Ed Koch. You know, it's like, well, nigga, we don't see you doing a podcast. We doing this shit. Y'all not.
Well, that's the thing. You know the thing is, first of all, guys, I don't have time. Time is not recoupable, and I value my time. Right. I don't have the time to where I care enough to go through the stream of comments and respond back to everybody, because a lot of it is so dumb. You got to remember, we live in an era where people are very intellectually lazy as well.
Yes, they are.
True.
People call themselves content creators, right?
Right.
The easiest thing the problem is, I'll listen to you guys, like we're doing this interview right now. You guys are intelligent. You know how to speak. It's not filled with a bunch of colloquialisms, a bunch of bullshit. Y'all ain't ask me no gossip, no bunch of gossipy questions, man. Anything that I've given you guys has been voluntarily tonight. Y'all ain't pushed me to go out there and say nothing, right? It's from a very journalistic place. It's fair journalist. Y'all ain't said nothing bad about them brothers, just like I ain't said nothing bad about them. There's no reason to talk bad about them. They choose to make the decisions. They choose to be who they want to be. I'm not going to let them dictate how I'm going to walk.
Exactly. And that's important, because so many times, as you said, Norm, a man's actions don't dictate how you walk, because in a sense, that means that could be a crutch, and he could cripple you behind it. You know,
exactly.
And that is the most important thing is understanding where you are and where people are. When you look at your time in the music industry, and how it relates to this, because it's all related in terms of relationships, people, business, and how everything comes together in terms of how everybody works as a unit. What have you found in the similarities of how the game works in terms of understanding temperaments, moods, and most importantly, working past that, whether you work with the people or without them?
I'll tell you, where it really aligns for me is this. We all make decisions as men, right? No one wants to be held accountable, first and foremost.
Right.
For mistakes that they may make, for decisions that things that they may decide, right? The way the music industry works is pretty much almost like this, right? Except that, music industry, you have a person, the record company is a bank, first of all. Right. I would say the one thing about the music industry, whether you want to say it's fair or unfair, but I will tell you this. The music industry is running on probably, there's a 90% chance when they sign an artist, that artist is going to fail. Right? That's why a lot of record deals ain't just passed out, right? You know, when we talk about the traditional sense of a guy making some dope music going in with his demo and somebody just signing them based off of talent, right? No, they want you to have some kind of, you have to have analytics. You have to have proven yourself as a viable commodity before somebody's going to invest a dime, right? Because they know 9 times out of 10 it don't have nothing to do with how great their music is, how good they rap, how good they sing, how good they produce. They could be the hottest thing walking this planet. But there's a 90 to 95% chance of failure, right? With that being said, the 1 or 2 successful people in the building may carry those. It pretty much keeps everybody employed, right? Mm-hmm. That's why you don't see major labels going out of business, because they've made decisions and they have to be compensated for those risks that they take, right? Our people have a really bad misconception, right, to where, let's keep it real, right? If I told you, hey, man, and this is what our people especially, right? Mm-hmm. If I told one of y'all, hey, man, I want you to come work an hour a week for me, and I'm going to give you $30,000, $40,000 a year, you would say, man, that's a come up. Now, I could work you to the gristle for that hour, right? But you have people that show up for an hour with this podcast stuff and don't do nothing else. They really don't do nothing. They just show up kind of, right? Don't help pay none of the bills. Don't even clean the studio when they leave. They leave their shit right there. They leave their beer cans right there, whatever else, right? They come in and bounce while you still there breaking down stuff down. And ain't nobody ever once said, well, you know what, man? I'm getting paid a lot of money and I really don't do shit. And keep in mind, we're not talking about the most talented motherfuckers in the world. Right. See, there's a difference between being interesting and being talented. When somebody is interested in you, once you lose that one thing, or once that one thing that people are interested in you for comes into question, you're no longer a valuable commodity. You're no longer, and that's just me keeping it 100, right? What people need to realize is that the rewards come to those that take the risk. And it always will. Now, if you want to make the lion's share of the money in something, start taking more risks. And stop agreeing to shit, because anybody that you hear crying about something, they usually crying off a decision that they made. Right. That's the biggest thing in the music industry. That's why me and Glasses get along so well. You know what Glasses says about any other labels that he's worked with? You never go hear him going out there talking crazy about Birdman or Mac 10 and nobody else, because when they presented him with the paperwork, it wasn't done under duress. Nobody had a gun to his head saying, man, sign this. He did it on his own, and oftentimes these people have changed his life. I'm going to tell you this. Majority of people I've been involved with, I've been a blessing in my life. They left better in their life than they did when they came in, prior to meeting me.
And that's a beautiful thing. We got to give a shout out to Glasses. We've had him on the show twice. I talked to him a couple of weeks ago on the phone. And when I remember what Glasses was saying, back in the day about his record deal when he was on Sony. Of course, I can speak on it because everybody knows what happened, with his record, The Beach Cruiser. And they gave him the option of, he could either give back the money and they keep if he could give back the money and keep his album, or he keeps the money and they keep his album. And he chose to give back the money and keep his album. Not many artists would have done that, but he knew that with his art and how much it meant to him, it was more for him to have that and be able to do it on his own volition in terms of how he felt the business should be done.
Right. Again, what did I just say? The rewards come from those that take the risk.
Yeah.
It's not that. And I'm going to tell you another thing, too, and I'm sorry for cutting you off. But
No, go ahead. Please. Go
I feel this is very important to all those people out there listening.
Yes, sir.
Is nobody owes you anything. Not your mom, not your father, not the universe. So if you do get someone and they decide to invest time, resources, and money into you, and let's say the business, let's say it just turns out to where it's like, okay, eventually you part ways, and everybody always parts ways eventually, even the most dynamic of situations. Eventually you're going to, everybody goes their own way, right?
Uh-huh.
But you don't have to leave out slamming the door all the time. I have people who I've done business with, and it went very good. And eventually, everybody went their own separate ways. But I've had situations to where we've, went our separate ways, but everything was good, and we wound up doing business again.
Right.
Sometimes that... Go ahead.
Yeah. I was just saying, it always comes back around. But in terms of what you said, Norm, about how business is, whether people don't owe you, we've always heard this in the game. It's not about what you deserve in business. It's what you can negotiate to get what you
can negotiate. And sometimes you have to wait till you come from a place of leverage. Like I'll tell you this.
Right.
Our next negotiation with Black Effect is at the end of this upcoming season, right?
Mm-hmm.
So with that being said, we was, I think, number 2 or 3 in the building last year. Mm-hmm. We got to become number 1 if we want to be in a place. Like, I'm pretty sure we up our standing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I feel very fortunate and blessed because there's a whole bunch of talented people out there, man. There are people out there with content that's better than ours.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the truth. I'm not scared to say that because I'm not like I said, I think being a hater is a sign of weakness. It's the difference between being critical and being a hater. I'm inspired by people that are great.
Say that.
I'm inspired by people that are great, man, and I love it. I ask questions, man, hey, how did you do this, man? That's real dope. I admire people, man. I admire people when they got something dope going on. I don't look and say, well, man, F them, man. And I know people like that. Man, sometimes, I'm going to tell y'all something. When you got a situation, man, where you so busy hating on everybody else, man, you so blinded by your hatred, you can't see your own blessings.
Right.
Man, and that's, it's one thing about it because I tell people all the time, there are things like, even with artists, there are artists that we don't particularly care for. But we don't get out there talking every day about how we can't stand this. So I'm like, look, they do what they do. We're going to listen to who we want to listen to because at the end of the day, we ain't got to listen to them. We don't want to listen to an artist who's whack. Guess what? We can put on Griselda. We can put on Fat Joe. We can put on Nas, MF Doom.
Yeah, you don't want to sound like those guys. You don't want to sound like that guy.
Right.
The next thing you know about, you be like a certain rapper. You say that, and then a couple weeks later, you take the knee, talk about, we want to have a conversation. And T-Max know where I'm getting at with that.
Yeah, my thing is, the rapper he was talking about, man, and he criticized, I'm like, let that man be great.
Like, you ain't put out nothing since, you ain't put out.
Let him be great. And this artist that I'm going to tell you, there's some of these young artists, I may not listen to them, but then again, I'm not supposed to like them. I'm a 50-year-old man.
Right.
Everything is not for me, but I can appreciate their brilliance. Like, when I look at the paper some of these young brothers making, I'm like, they doing their thing. NBA Youngboy do his own shit. I think Kodak Black is dope. Even with Sexy Red, do I like her subject matter all the time? No, but she got a chokehold in the culture. No, she do her thing.
And if it's like, you ain't got. That's the beautiful thing about today is more balanceable because you don't have to listen to it.
You don't have to. Nobody is out there with a pistol to your head, making you listen to Sexy Red, making you listen to Lil Nas X and whoever number of the one of these young brothers out there doing their thing, man. The thing is this, right?
Mm-hmm.
The biggest thing we have to learn as black people is we got to stop crippling each other. Because if I cripple you, I've crippled myself as well.
And that crippling is contagious because everybody's going to walk around trying to pull a Tanya Hardin on everybody. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly. And the biggest thing is when you look at it, right?
Mm-hmm.
People say stuff from a misinformed place all the time. That's how lawsuits. See, what I tell people all the time is, if somebody went out there and said, "Hey, man, no truth," and that's torturous business interference, because somebody may be considering doing business with me, and I could lose a deal that I possibly had before I even know about that deal, because somebody has made a uninformed decision about my character.
And
so you got to be careful with that, man.
Yeah, and as you said, we have to understand that at the end of the day, and we're gonna get a little deep with this. It's still an extension of that slave mentality, you know, because, and even when we look at the desegregation of 1948, and people were asked, well, how is that an anecdotal to what you said? Well, I would say this. When you have people that have been able to move past certain elements of being stuck in an area and they've advanced and evolved and they didn't have to stay in that same place, they got out of it. Some might have taken that as a separation, but no. Separation is not always a bad thing. Separation sometimes is the key to elevation. And when you're able to move to a different place and do your thing, you're still going to have those people in the back with critics. And you know what? That's life, because you're never going to have anyone that's going to totally support what you do. What becomes a calamity is when people have a callous enough nature to where they will sabotage your shit. That's where we call hate comes in. And we see this situation time and again. People just trying to live their life, do their thing, and what happens? Somebody, not only do people have a negative opinion about it, but people have a fucking inflammatory, I hate this shit and I'm gonna burn the whole house down opinion. I'm like, what is this? And the person didn't even do nothing to them. I'm like,
well, you know,
yeah, go ahead.
People that don't like themselves have a tendency to place that blame, whether it's on a subconscious level. Mm-hmm. People today blame their circumstances on somebody else. Mm-hmm. Like you see it all the time in entertainment, especially. You see the artists today, they may have had a situation that happened 30 years ago, but they blame that one situation for what they got going on 30 years later. And it's like, man, if you haven't evolved past that, there's nobody to blame but yourself. I can't even remember what happened to me last year. You think I'm concerned about what happened yesterday? When I got tomorrow, possibly, man, Lord willing, to deal with whatever I got going on, can't nothing nobody did to me 30 years ago impact me today.
And that's important, being able to move past. You know, when we look at certain people in the music industry where artists talk about, well, they signed me to this contract and it wasn't good or this business wasn't bad. I'm like, listen, we know the stories with certain people and we know that they probably weren't the greatest of business people.
You probably got a legit gripe, but you got to move on after a while.
Right. You know what I'm saying? You know, there's a certain individual. We're not going to say his name, obviously, because on off the cuff, we don't ever put nobody out there, you know. But he had an issue with he passed on, but he had an issue with a certain individual. And, King and me, we would talk off air about it. And we're like, dude, I understand that the individual in question has a lot of stuff that maybe the business wasn't always right. But I'm like, dude, let it go. It's like, you got to move past it. I get it, but it's like, it's not helping you any, and after a while, it gets lost to history because you're talking about stuff that happened over 25 years ago. I'm like, move on from it because it's not helping you psychologically.
So think about this. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna leave it at this. And people can go do their own homework.
Mm-hmm.
You got one guy that was on the show for 6 months. 6 months. You talk about 6 months, right?
Right.
What's that? That's 180 days. Still talking about shit 5 years later. You have guys that we ain't seen each other in a year and a half. They still talking about it. It's because they haven't moved on. If you had something, move on. I'm not concerned about, man. And I think that's the biggest thing I can attribute, man, to our resilience, man, is the fact we don't live in the past, dude.
Nah.
I can't sit up here and worry about who messing with me, who not messing with me, who don't like the show no more, who like the show. I'm more focused on who messing with us. And I'm riding with them. I see it sometimes, and that's the biggest advice I give content creators. I see guys going in on the comment section on everybody that got something negative to say about them, they going in on them. But they don't pass up the 10 to 15 people saying positive stuff about them. Don't ignore those people. Don't give them other people your energy.
And that's important. The thing is that I think at times, as you said, even if you're not a negative person, the thing is don't feed into the trolls, because to me, it's got to be a miserable motherfucker to wake up every day figuring out how they're going to try to fuck somebody's life up, saying some negative shit. I'm like, it's like, and you got people that are so bogged down in their own insecurities and not liking and not doing shit. That their thing is they have issues with people who actually got off their ass and said, you know what, I'm going to make this shit happen one way or the other. People even, doubted us at first. King, I came on late 3 years later, but people were doubting King. But, one thing about my bro, he never let that get to him, and he bet on himself and he believed in it, because Off the Cuff was born out of what he felt was a need for something to be said that was conscious, worthwhile, and most importantly, truthful. And I tell anybody, don't let nobody ever sabotage you from your happiness. Don't let nobody hijack you from your joy. You endeavor. That's what makes you great alone, because you're brave for making an attempt where most people wouldn't even try to do it.
Hey, man, and you know what? The other thing is this, right? Mm-hmm. People have a tendency to project their fears and insecurities on everybody else. So when you get those people that tell you, man, ain't nobody taking for that, or ain't nobody gonna do this all, man, you wasting your time. I'll show you a scared person that's scared to go fly. Mm-hmm. I've never let fear hinder me or the thought of failure. I don't walk into situations thinking about losing anyway. I think if you walk into a situation and not believing in yourself, I think you're doomed from the rip.
Right.
You're doomed from the rip, man. Like I said, man, I really appreciate y'all having me on tonight. Where there's need for me, I'm here for y'all.
Norm, this has been incredible, man. And to have you on, to have your wisdom, to have your knowledge, to just tell it, man. I mean, we got to make it to California one of these days, man, because we would love to sit in on your show, man, and just, sit, and just chop it up with you all, man.
Oh, for sure. What part of the country y'all in?
I'm in Carolina.
I'm in Hampton Roads, Virginia, 757. 7 cities, and King is in the Raleigh-Durham area.
Man, that's dope, man. I know next year we making a move down to Texas, man. I think me and 8 getting up out of here, man.
Man, I mean, look.
California, California is getting like out of control when it comes to these prices, I heard.
Oh man, I'm gonna tell you this. One thing about it, man, you gotta always plan for your future, right?
Right.
I'm not a dude to wait to the last minute to do stuff. Eventually, man, we're gonna go on to do other things, right? Like right now, we're embarking on this journey where we starting to make movies and stuff like that, man. I look at spots like Texas, man, even Arkansas and New Orleans, right? You just get more house and more land for your buck. I look at it right now, man. My house don't went up in value. It's almost worth, almost $1 million, right? But I'm in a 4-bedroom townhouse. It's cool. It's nice. It's a blessing, right? But for what I can go do with that money down there in Texas, man, I can have a 5 or 6 bedroom for a fraction of the price and have land and catch a break from these taxes and all that other stuff to where I can live my latter years like I want to. I don't want to be the dude, and there's nothing wrong with it, but I refuse to be the dude after I've done all this amazing stuff in my life to go out, man, and be signing receipts at a Walmart somewhere to supplement my income.
I feel you.
I don't want to do that. And, shout out to those people that do it, because ain't nothing wrong with working, man. And that's another thing, for the first, I didn't leave my job, man, until maybe like a few years ago, man. I always stayed at work, man. I always kept working. Even like Gangster Chronicles, the whole time we've been, even when we started making money, I always kept going to my day job because, I would get people ask me, Norm, why you still going to work? You could do this. And I said, man, that job paying me $130,000 a year. What am I going to walk away from it for? I'm not that busy. I got a whole lot of time during the week. And it's not like I was out there, it ain't like I was out there busting rocks, you know what I mean? It was, I'm an executive.
Right.
I wasn't about to leave, man. I tell everybody now, man, have multiple hustles, man. Even if you start making money or something, you should have something else going on where you're making income too, because things happen.
They do.
Yeah, things happen, and I refuse to be the dude that's just stuck. I got fired from a job one time, and it took me getting fired from that job. I went out and spent a bunch of money I was making. It was my first executive job. And I was out there blowing money like it was the thing to do. That was the era when everybody had on big ass chains and jewelry and stuff, and sound systems in their car. Man, I said after that, and I sat at home, and them few dollars I had started to dwindle. I said, man,
It's time to get on the move.
Going to have multiple things going on.
Yeah, it's like it's time to get on the move.
Yeah, what I'm saying, man, you got to grind, man. A lot of people just lazy nowadays, man.
What was the difference like in terms of how you look at the record industry then as to how it is now in terms of the money that was made, how artists are being promoted, and what just the whole climate?
I think right now, man, we in an era where you got to do it yourself. And I think that it started happening kind of like, shout out to the Bay Area, right?
Man, ain't no hustle like the Bay.
Yeah, when you look at what cats in the Bay was doing, and even the cats in the South, those were guys that traditionally didn't get opportunities. Like if you was in New York or LA, the odds of you could see the record companies.
Right.
When you in a place like Raleigh, North Carolina, ain't no place of record companies down there, man. People don't see that stuff. I'm originally from Cleveland. When I started having dreams of aspiring to do more, I knew I had to get out of Cleveland. I had to either go to New York or LA or possibly Florida, right? Mm-hmm. Florida had record companies. And I just knew that in order for me to flourish at that time, I had to leave the city. Now you ain't got to leave the city, man, because the internet has opened it up to where all you got to do is think of something hot, man, and next thing you know, you own the crack.
Now, how important is it? Because, see, this is the tricky thing about it. Because you're absolutely right. You gotta be able to move out the city to do it. But what do people have to understand about? You can't just be hot in one place. Well, depending on where you are, you can be hot and you can eat. But how important is it for your art to be able to get past where you are in terms of where you come from?
Well, you know what I say, man. I think it's different about today. I think definitely you have to set your own surrounding areas off first. And I'm gonna tell you why. Think about it. If you're a kid from Ohio, right?
Right.
If you're a kid from Ohio, let's say you're in Cleveland, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the Midwest, you can touch 3 states in a day, right? Like if I was in Ohio, I would be trying to get my shit jumping in Kentucky too. I would really go to the places that don't have a lot going on. Like I think people think too much about the major cities, right?
Mm-hmm.
When I look at Gangster Chronicles fan base, right, I got 1 million people or some shit like that every week or every few weeks coming, listening to the audio, right? When I look at it, now we have our major markets, like Houston is a big market for us, Chicago is a big market, New York is a big market for us, LA is a big market, right?
Right.
But when you looked on the total of it, there are the smaller cities like the Jacksonville, Florida, like the Akron, Ohio's, the Buffalo's. Those collectively give us more numbers than those bigger cities do. So I think you got to be relatable to people, man. I think that's the biggest thing. It's like this: always be yourself, but you got to be able to relate to. You got to be able to relate to everybody, just like a cat. Now the thing about it is, if you look at the great artists, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody relates to them on a global level.
Right.
Everybody relates to them on a global level. I think the reason why gangster rap started taking a turn for it is because it got so, I'm not going to say out of control, but everybody don't relate to gangbanging logic. You feel what I'm saying? Like if you're talking to somebody in Virginia, a street dude in Virginia, he may relate to a lot of universal street stuff, but he may not relate to the whole thing about, the colors and all this and other stuff, right?
Right.
Now that's interesting to people. Some people it's interesting. To a lot of people nowadays, they don't hurt. You got to come with some more shit nowadays, man. I think you have to be willing to make changes when what you're doing ain't working. If y'all look at, let's say what I did with the Gangster Chronicles, right? Mm-hmm. We twisted the formula 2 or 3 times, man. Because when you get certain people to leave, you can't do what you did before. So you have to think about it. Or quit the show, one. You know what I mean? But you can't get so stuck on what you want to do. Everything you do got to be a service to the fans, man.
Right.
To the people that's messing with you. You gotta do it. Because if I start doing something on the show and I see it ain't working, I'm not going to keep doing it, man. But you also have to know when it's time to leave some shit alone, too.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's important because evolution is everything is being able to be, as Bruce Lee said about water, you have to be able to flow like water, take the shape of what it is. When we look at certain music, when we look at some podcasts out there, that's why some podcasts fall, because they're stuck in one particular area of either ostentatious ridiculousness, being a striperness, or, did they try to pass off as, well, gimmicks are only going to be so much a gimmick until you realize gimmicks are only passe. What else do you have to put on the plate?
Right.
I'm going to tell y'all something to check out next time y'all get the opportunity, right?
Yes, sir.
You have these people come out, man, with these bigger-than-life personas, right?
Right.
And they're usually unfiltered, right? They don't care what they say. They have no kind of, really no boundaries, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's not a talent. Whenever you have something that could be easily duplicated, you probably will have a short run, because I'm going to tell you the same thing with music. When hip-hop came along, it was perceived, you didn't have to have no kind of musical, you didn't have to have no kind of musical background, right? You didn't have to know how to play the piano necessarily. You didn't have to play the bass. You didn't have to know how to read music, right? If that was the case, if you ever notice, there's never been an influx of R&B singers, right? Because it actually takes something to do that. But when people saw and they got the idea, because you actually have to have talent if you could be a rapper with some staying power. Most rappers today, that even the ones we know as rappers, they're able to produce. Like Scarface is one of the greatest producers around. A lot of people don't know that. He plays maybe 2 or 3 different instruments. You know what I'm saying? He plays a lot. You know, he's a musical guy, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But he has a career that spanned 30 years, right? Yep. When you look at even somebody like Willie D, though what he appeared, you know, it may appear that what he does is easy, but that dude is actually a brilliant songwriter, and he knows how to engage people. Yeah, that's why he was able to train. Yeah, exactly. And that's why he was able to transition over in the media, because he's a very eloquent Southern gentleman.
Right.
You feel what I mean? Yeah. Willie D is a good friend of mine. But you see, these people, they have talent. They have something special about them. If you're doing something that can be easily duplicated, somebody's going to take your sauce one day, because all it takes for him is to have a little bit bigger personality than you, and he can come and do your same thing. That's why we see these guys like if you look at Charleston White, for example, whether you love him, hate him, or indifferent, he has a certain talent to him. He's very quick-witted. Do I agree with everything he say? Hell no. But in comparison to other people, he actually probably could pivot off and do some other stuff, man. I think if he ever decided to, I think he could be this generation's Dick Griffey. Because a lot of stuff he says isn't true. And I don't agree with his methods all the time, but I think he's pretty brilliant.
Well, Dick Griffey was the one that took Suge and showed him how to work in the industry. You know, he gave Suge the game.
Yeah, you know what? I didn't mean to say Dick Griffey, the music dude. What was the
Dick Gregory.
Dick Gregory. See, I was thinking about Dick Griffey. Sounds like Los Angeles.
But Dick Gregory, you know, the thing is, Dick Gregory is very opinionated, very fiery at times. He spoke on a lot of levels. He controversial probably would fit Dick, Gregory best. Charleston, I think Charleston, while he has a lot to say, as you said, I don't, agree with everything, he says. But I would tell Charleston, you have the freedom to say what you want to say. You just don't have the freedom from consequences either.
Oh, for sure. And that's one thing. That's what I was going to lead. That was what I was going to lead off to, though. You can say whatever you want to, but somebody's going to hit you in the mouth. And I'm going to tell you this. Most dudes that talk shit on the internet can't fight.
That's true, because they're on the internet all the time talking.
Because they're on the internet talking. I'm going to tell you something. Mm-hmm. I'm not into a whole bunch of lip wrestling and talking. I can fight. I'm from the east side of Cleveland. I know how to fight. I can squabble. But by me being in a lot of fights and knowing how to squabble, it lets me know that how serious things can get. So I tend to stay out the mix of bullshit, because it ain't never out of fear. I save people from themselves sometimes.
Because they don't know what they're going to get when they deal with you on that level.
Yeah, because I'm not, if you put my family into some shit, like, you can say whatever you want to about me. I'm very thick-skinned. I don't give a damn. Say whatever you want to about me. I'll be there. But two mountains will never meet, two men will. So I feel like this. If you say something about me and I feel like it's to the point to where it's like, okay, when I see Buddy, we gonna have us a conversation. I'll wait till I see you. I'm not gonna go online and say, I'm not gonna give you no warning. I'm not gonna say nothing, because I'm very patient. It might be tomorrow, it might be next month, it might be 2 years from now, but I will see you eventually.
And I think that's something where we have to really kind of understand it, because what you said, Norm, is a very powerful statement. We're all older, so we come from a generation where if there was an issue, because there wasn't social media back then, you had a problem with nigga, you went to go see him. And then God forbid the guns come out, because the guns came out if it was depending where you were from, like, from my hood where I came from, the gunplay was something, and I knew people that had, but that was a situation. The guns didn't come out unless that was a real situation.
Right.
We knew as shorties what that meant. We had a squabble with a nigga, that was one thing. When you're talking about shooting somebody, that's something totally different. And what we're seeing now is everybody gets brave getting out there. I think Mike Tyson said it. The internet,
Gave weirdos a lane.
keeps a lot of people from getting punched in the mouth. Because it's a lot of brave people online who love to talk, but like you said, if you a real street nigga and you really with the shit, even if you're going to make a rash decision, you're not going online to broadcast that. You're going to handle that one way or the other. It ain't going to be over a computer screen. It ain't going to be no Twitter thing.
Got that right.
But this generation has got to understand that there are real consequences when you get out there and get crazy. And they don't always understand that. But that thing is, we gonna get out, we go, and this is the worst shit ever. Niggas talking about they gonna run a fade. I'm like, nigga, run a fade already.
We ain't seen a fade in 20 years.
Don't do it.
Well, what's crazy, man, about all this stuff, though, man? I look at all these brothers over 40 years old, right? That's talking crazy online and everything. We need to grow up, man, as black men, man. Like it's a lot of. I walk from a place of maturity. Am I gonna go out and fight everybody? Hell no, man. I got I'm worth too much money, man, and I got too much positive stuff going on in my life, and I need to be here for my family. I got plans, man. I don't need to be sitting up in somebody's penitentiary. Because I do know for a fact that if I take it to a place, I'm going all the way there. I don't do stuff I don't do nothing petty. I don't do nothing on the lower level. So if we go to war, I'm really going to go to war with you.
And, people got to understand once everybody thinks the shit is funny until it actually turns into something. That's why I tell people you need to leave people alone at times, because a person who is a piece, that means they usually, depending on who they are, it took them a long time to get to that level of sanctity. So if you disrupt that peace, best believe you're going to fuck around and have 5 world wars on your ass when they decide they've had enough of it. Because they feel like in their mind, you're not letting them live their life. And when people feel like they're the most valuable commodity a person has next to time is their space. Give people their space. Let them live. Do not get in their area and disrupt their zen. Because if you disrupt their zen, it's going to be a fucking problem.
Yeah, exactly.
And
my thing is this. My thing is all about my family. I don't know. Some of these dudes, the way they play, man, they on there talking about people's mamas, kids, and, man, this stuff that can happen, man.
And, the biggest thing people got to understand more than anything, Norman King, is that this is the real world we live in. We can say this on air because there was a situation, obviously it was public and it was foolish. Nicki Minaj husband talking about what he going to do to Offset. I'm like, number one, you're 40. Number two, you already got a record. Number three, you forget, and rest in peace, Takeoff, you forget that the Migos are really from the street.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing, man. These dudes, it's like when you start talking about that you go do something to somebody, you got to understand that man saying and within himself. I'm going to tell you something. By me saying I can fight, that don't mean I'm no tough guy, right? Because believe me, when I talk to somebody and they tell me, man, I ain't never lost a fight, I tell them you ain't been in no fights. I come from a place where we used to fight almost every day. You had the squad, man. And I was 16. By me being always bigger than everybody else, I was always fighting somebody when I was 14 who was 20 or 21. And sometimes I got my shit split open.
Right.
They just come with the game.
But, yeah. That just come with it, man. But I've never been scared of no other human being. Now, you can't misconstrue me being respectful as being a punk. You shouldn't want no problems as a man because stuff can happen. And you may have to, and it may just not end. But some people, it don't never end until it's finished. You feel what I mean? So you got to think about what all this stuff comes with, man. You know, when you get to playing with people and stuff like that, you got to respect all, man, because everybody not playing.
And, you know, certain people, I tell, and, you know, this is a Tanae, I tell everybody, when niggas ain't quick with the hands or the gun, it's not because they're scared of you. It's because usually niggas just don't want to go to jail. Lawyer fees are a bitch.
They'll let it go.
You know?
They'll let it go if they came down to it.
Yeah, you got to think about it, man. When you start talking about now, let's say I decided to act on one of these clowns that like to talk online, right? First of all, they ain't got no money. I do something to them, I'm probably gonna get sued, and let's take that out the equation.
Right.
I bust somebody's head open and whoop their ass. I'm going to jail. This ain't no movies, man. I'm going to jail, right?
Exactly.
Somebody go tell. Somebody go tell. And what's going to happen? Let's say I'm in the right. Let's say I do wind up having to put my pistol on somebody. They gonna come and arrest me. I'm gonna have to bond out. I'm gonna have to get my lawyer. I'm gonna have to have a couple $100,000 to put to the side to fight the case good.
Right.
Now, let's say I beat the case and everything. I'm coming back home. I ain't been able to do no work or nothing. My show probably going to be over with. Or, you know, the way shit is today, it might even be bigger. But, you know what I'm saying? It's like you've lost money at that point. And you've lost everything. Why even go through that bullshit?
Right.
And that's important, man. You know, when I look at the situations today, because when we look at how it's moving today on social media, people will try to say, oh my God, the music is making our kids do this. No, I'm like, no, because it's like this. The music is not doing anything. If anything, I'm like, we could stop all the ignorant shit in music today and the problems are still going to be there tomorrow. You know, so, but I tell people, I do say this. It's what's being put, what kids are seeing now online, the young people, they're seeing it, and it's become, when you inundate yourself with negativity to a degree, you're going to start living it at one point or another. Because that's all you really pay attention to. Right. Like you said earlier, Norm, that's why what you consume and your media diet is important. You know, and back in the day growing up, some of the stuff we see these kids doing today, we would have never been. We were mischievous and we did our share of shit, but we would have never done some of this stuff out here today. We just wouldn't have done it. It just wasn't in us to think. We just would have never thought about it. But you know, it's all about kids. You know, young people doing certain things online, and the negative. You know, it's just publicity. It could be good or bad, but it's publicity. And a lot of the young people think that this is how you get famous. I'm like, no, this is how you go to prison for some of it.
Yeah, you can go to, man, yeah. People have to understand life is real. And I think we've become so consumed as a culture, man, with everything that's fake or fraudulent that we forget that this reality, this ain't no movie.
Exactly.
This ain't no movie, man. You mess around and do some shit and find yourself in a bad place.
And I mean, these videos, kids talking about how they, you know, these youngins talking about how to break into cars and shit.
Yeah, if you get, on top of that, it ain't no movie. If you get shot, you ain't gonna hear no orchestra music coming. You out of here.
You know, I mean, this is when you look at it as a black man, a family man, as a public figure. The responsibilities that come with it. What have you learned along the way in terms of what it means and how you move and just basically how you hold that responsibility, how you carry that weight?
Well, everything I do first and foremost comes from the place of me being a father. That's why you would never see, you know, that's why you won't find me doing stuff online. I can't let other people's actions dictate the man I am, right? I think it's very important to remember that we have somebody else sharing our last name, right? Uh-huh. And you never know who's watching, right? You never know who's watching. So everything I do is always with the thought of me not embarrassing my children, first of all myself.
Right.
You know, I think I think we all have to be conscious, or you should be conscious, or either you a fool. You know, when you hear people say that they don't care about certain stuff, they act in a certain way, they care, man. They got mental problems, though. A lot of these people that's online right now need help. People got a lot of insecure people, man. That's why, if you ever notice, a person is confident within themselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
They have nothing inflammatory to say about the next man, because they thinking about themselves. They thinking about what they got to do, moves they got to make. They too busy to be consumed by other people's bullshit, right?
Right, right.
They're too busy to be consumed by other people's bullshit, man. So being a father is very important to me, man. And I think that, you know, the job of being a father, because all my kids are adults now. Mm-hmm. But that don't mean the job of me being a father ceases. If anything, it gets harder. You know, once your kids get grown, man, it's still the same stuff. It just usually costs a little bit more money, man, to deal with. The problem's still there. It just usually costs a little bit more money to deal with, you know. And I think you have to lead by example. I'm not one of those hypocritical parents. I've never done stuff. I've never told my kids to do stuff I didn't do. And I think that's always important to remember as a father. Whether you're a father, mom, or, you know, uncle. You got some situations, especially in our community, where the uncle might be the daddy.
Right.
You can't tell your nephew or your son, hey man, I don't think it's a good thing that you smoking weed and you sitting up there smoking a gram every day.
Right.
You feel what I'm saying? And not, you know, and everything ain't meant. When you're an adult, right? Everything not meant for children, but I think you always have to remember, man, that they're always watching.
Right.
Especially a son, especially when you got sons, man, because you pretty much the whole template for your son to be a man. Why you think we got so many hoe ass niggas out here nowadays?
Boy. I mean,
the reason you got a lot of crazy ass dudes walking around here is because, and this is not saying because you got women that do a very great job, but if you look at the way these guys act nowadays, you got a lot of guys that act like, I don't know how old you guys are, but I remember the messy, sloppy girls in the hood. They stayed in the phone gossiping all day. They always was worried about what the next woman had on. They had something to say about it. They go to church, or you see what Sister Such said, God said. A lot of these guys come from that same lineage, man. Because they sound just like the raggedy-ass, cat-ass brothers in the neighborhood. If you listen to how some of these dudes talk, it's the same shit, man. And if anything, I would say that the average woman today is probably stronger than the average man.
I mean, and you know, when we look at, you know, because I'm 46, you know, King is 40, you know, so we come from an entirely different era. So we just didn't see, there were just certain things, it just wasn't in terms, and, you know, I preface this by saying, you know, we have nothing against, you know, anybody who chooses to live, you know, their truth, whether gay, transsexual, whatever. You know, you're who you are, and we respect you for who you are living the truth. But when we see certain situations with certain individuals out there, we just wonder, you know, I mean, some of the stuff dudes be wearing, and they pass off as fashion. And I'm like, we would have never done this when we were growing up. I'm like, where did y'all get this
Especially
from?
dudes sagging with his thong showing.
Yeah, again, man, it's because you guys were raised to be men. When we live in a point, man, where that's why it's so important, man, for us to really take this into consideration, man. We got to stop being a bunch of tender dicks, right? Because you got you guys out here having kids that's not. King, you there?
Yeah, I'm still here. I think he got broken up a little bit. I think his phone it got cut off though, but this was a dope build overall, man. But
Absolutely.
Big shout out to Steele, man. This was a dope build. I'm gonna have this show on the YouTube channel probably tomorrow. I gotta edit it, do some stuff to it. But once again, apologize for the misconvenience. Hold on, I think we're gonna have him on right quick. He gonna. Yeah. Hold on 1 second.
Okay.
I think he's back on.
Okay. Yeah, I think you got cut off for a minute. Yeah, but go ahead. What were you saying?
Yeah, it's very important, man, for us to realize what our job is, right? And our duty is, right?